Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Tradesman. With me in the studio today, I have Harrie of Harrie Interiors. It is Harrie Interiors, isn't it?
Yes.
Did get that right.
Hello.
Hello. Harrie, let's talk.
Great.
First of all, mate, massive thank you for making the effort and coming up today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to a juicy conversation.
I don't know why you think you'd get that from me.
High expectations, mate.
Yeah.
High expectations. So to all of those, my trainer digging into me. To all of those sat at home listening or wherever they might be, do you want to just introduce yourself a little, who you are, where you're from, and all of that generic stuff?
Hi. So my name is Harriet. I own and operate a Harrie Interiors in Rochester, Kent. We're a painter and decorator company. Well, I say we, but I'm actually on my own now. Whereas, so it's just me. And yeah, I've been working in this industry for about 8 years now. Really like it. However, I have diversified slightly lately.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to all of that. But we can touch on it quickly now and leave people in suspense. So you've diversified lately into?
Pilates. Which is not just for women, can I just say, straight off the bat.
You heard it here first. Pilates is not just for women.
Do you know anything about it?
Only what you've... So just for full disclosure, Harrie and myself and a few other decorators are in an Instagram group, and Harrie has dropped various nuggets of knowledge into the group. Generally, when we're there going, I'm dying, my back's broke, or this is broke, or that's broke, Harrie will come up with the advice of, well, you need to bend like a pretzel and it'll fix you, basically. So, yeah, I know very little other than what I've seen from you and your social media, if I'm honest.
Okay. So do you know anything about Pilates, who he is?
I did not know it was a he. So, no, if I'm honest, I didn't even know Pilates was named after a person.
Okay, let me regale you for a quick second.
Let's go.
So Joseph Pilates was a German man who was a boxer and a circus performer.
Okay.
And after World War I, could stand corrected on that one, he was over here, and we put all of the people who were not English into a containment camp because we were unsure if they were secretly going to bomb us. Right. So we sort of sent all foreigners into these camps, and while I'll make this as brief as possible, so forgive me if there's any sort of minor things that aren't quite factual, but basically he was in these camps, and when the soldiers would come back, he would help. He was really into fitness and health and stuff like that, and when the soldiers came back from war injured, he would help rehabilitate them. And the army said to him, this is really amazing, so would you be able to train our army? And he was like, fuck no, I'm not using my powers for evil. And then he basically left the country, decided to leave the country and go to America. So it was there that he then set up a little sort of like a physio studio gym where he would rehabilitate people, or help people with injuries and stuff. And he got quite famous among the ballerina community because, like ballerinas, when they get injured, they're generally like, oh, that's it, your career's over.
Yeah.
Well, they would go to him and find that his method was actually really helping with their injuries and stuff. And he called it controlology because it's all about the control of the body, the alignment and things like that. And they basically said, so like word spread among them, like, oh, have you been to Pilates? Like instead of saying like Joe's, or they said Pilates, like, and so how the notion of saying going to Pilates came about. And then he had sort of several people who worked alongside him, who basically they're now known as the elders in the community, and they would sort of spread the good word of teaching his same method to people, and that's how it kind of grew. So it sort of lost being called controlology and just became Pilates instead. But yeah, originally,
there you go. I didn't know it was named after a person, let alone a bloke.
He was quite a controversial guy as well. He used to wander around in his pants all the time. Like he would just strut about, like, oh, he's in the circus. You don't really wear a lot. Yeah. You can be quite used to performing quite naturally, like, so or unafraid of bodies, basically. I think
Yeah.
when you're doing any kind of physical thing like that, like, you know, pole dancing and stuff like that, you become a lot less shy about showing off your body because you need the skin for contact and stuff like that. So yeah, he was quite a bold guy and quite a character. And yeah,
So what, like, if because by the sounds of it, he was able to, like you say, rehabilitate and heal. Why is Pilates? Which one?
Pilates.
Why is Pilates so healing? Like, what makes it so remedial?
So your body in space.
Yeah, my body in particular is knackered. So yeah.
So essentially, we're working against gravity. We're walking against gravity. Our skeleton wants to stay upright, doesn't it, against gravity? So when you have something that comes out of alignment, your body will compensate for that to keep your body in an upright position. For example, decorating me. Because I'm tall as well, 6'1", I'll rarely use a ladder. So I'll reach if I can, because it's time, isn't it? You know, you've got to get this done. So I'll reach up. And what's happened as such, my rib cage is now naturally tilted. So some people might find that their bottom ribs stick out a little bit. That's called a rib flare.
Yeah.
And that's where your rib cage is just tilted off that plumb line.
So that's because you're tall, therefore you don't really use steps, so you reach more, and that's what that's done to your body.
Yeah, well, if you're always reaching up, your body naturally helps you, doesn't it? It wants to stretch. So to reach up, if I need to reach further, if my rib cage lifts a little bit more, then I can reach. Then so that's like a natural sort of thing that I do every day, all the time. As such, my body wants to stay in that alignment. So now my shoulders are going round. Because to balance out the rib cage bending back, if you think the skeleton wants to stay upright, so now my shoulders are going to round forwards. So I have very rounded shoulders. I have rib flare.
Wow, yeah.
So these things that you do every single day impact on your body. And so that can then cause other issues. So my rib flare, like that will mean maybe the muscles at my back, where my body's now bended slightly like this, the muscles at my back here are going to be slightly long and weak. So I might get quite a lot of neck pain. Also, my neck might be more forward, which is I have more of a forward head poking posture because my shoulders are rounded. So I might have some weak muscles in my neck there, or certainly get muscle strain if I'm doing sort of a lot of stuff. So basically, his method works at looking at the alignment, your original alignment, then exercising those muscles to bring yourself back into that natural alignment. So that's sort of essentially the secret to the healing, I guess, in that
realigning yourself.
So you can see so often men have an anterior pelvic tilt. And which means they'll have like a little bit of a curve. So if you lay onto your back, it might be a little bit uncomfortable to begin with because you might feel like your hips are really tipping forwards, and you might feel that hurts your upper back a little bit and your lower back because it doesn't want to quite lay down flat. If you stay there for a while, you can allow the gravity to sort of sink you down. So I think the thing with yoga and Pilates, men often think, oh no, it's like stretching. I can't even get into those positions. I can't even sit cross-legged. I can't even do this. But if you start with the very basic, like just lay down flat on the floor and let gravity melt you, like you'll be amazed at then what you can achieve. And it's just taking the time to sort of get into that position. So Pilates, it's all about alignment. It's all about sort of correcting your own misalignments. So it gets you to look at the body, how you're sitting, how you're holding yourself, and sort of remind those muscles that maybe have got long and weak or aren't quite working properly to activate and to regain that control, regain that original alignment.
Does it ever get to a point of, so I'm just thinking of myself, right? So I've been decorating since Jesus, not since Jesus, for a long time.
Since BC.
Yeah, exactly. I think I started going to work with my dad when I was 8. Took over the business at 17, but I've been in the trade a ridiculous amount of time. Does there ever come to a point where it's like, okay, too much damage now? Because I'm kind of thinking now, I've probably operated with my body doing those things like the leaning, the stretching. So I'm the same. Most ceilings I'll paint without steps. So a lot of leaning, a lot of stretching and all that kind of thing. Does it ever get to the point where my body has actually been doing that longer than it has been potentially aligned correctly, is there like a point of no return?
I think that's I don't think there's a right answer to that, because I actually think we don't know. If you look at, there's a guy called Brian Johnson who's doing he's trying to basically live forever. So he's getting lots of tests on him.
Is this the guy that's like, is
He's a
he
millionaire.
taking his son's blood or something like
he's
that?
doing, yeah.
Yeah, he looks strange.
He looks
I
very
can't lie.
strange. Yeah, he's reversing his aging. So, and if you think about the fact that, you know, we get a new liver every so many days, our body rejuvenates itself in so many ways. There are some things that people say, oh, once this starts to decline, you can't get it back. And I'm quite interested in, I was going to call it microbiology, quantum biology. So it's so fascinating. Have you heard of that?
No.
So
quantum biology. No.
Yeah.
I've heard of quantum computing, but not quantum biology.
So it's about that molecular level. I think it's fascinating, and I just think there's so much we don't know about our own bodies. So I'm quite confident that once you start working on something with the right mindset of, you know, manifestation.
Yeah.
So some people think manifestation is kind of a bit woo-woo. One thing I've learned with all of the studying that I've done recently, which has absolutely blown my mind, that's why I've kind of been like floating. I've been saying to you guys in the group, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm just a little bit like, and it's because I'm just trying to process the large amounts of information that I've received in the last year. I've sort of discovered that everything that society sort of deems woo-woo is actually, there's a lot of grounded in science, basically.
Let's take a quick break there to thank our headline sponsors, Zinza. And let's talk about Zinza's Perma White. Zinza Perma White is a self-priming, mold-resistant interior wall paint. It isn't just available in white, it can be tinted to any colour at selected stockists. It has trace VOCs and a scrubbable formula that's designed to resist cracking, peeling and blistering for up to 7 years, making Zinza Perma White the perfect choice when you're looking for an all-purpose finish for kitchens, bathrooms and high humidity areas. Go and check it out. Big thank you again to Zinza, and let's get back to the episode.
And I'm not sure why culturally we're led to believe it's such a bad thing. Things like natural lights, how that affects you. Why do we wear sunglasses? Because of the damage that the UV can cause us. But actually those scientific tests that told us that UV was damaging were done on just the UV light alone and not real sunlight, which actually has lots of other rays in it. And so when you go out in the sun, if you don't have sunglasses on, your eye can pick up all of the whole spectrum of light, and it can tell the body, I need to make more melatonin, so I need to protect the skin. If you've got sunglasses on, you're interrupting that signal to the brain, and so you're more likely to get sunburned. Things like this.
Really?
We make so many things to help us.
That's fascinating, Harriet. It makes sense.
They hinder us in so many ways.
What you just said, though, that makes perfect sense in terms of the body and its chemicals, and by doing that. But how mad is that? So by wearing sunglasses, you can get sunburn more easily. Yeah.
So I haven't worn sunglasses for I didn't wear them the whole of last year, didn't get sunburn. I'm fair-skinned and I always get sunburn. So it's crazy. I just thought, okay, I'll stop wearing them because of course, why if the sun is too bright, our eyes will close. Like they will close.
There's I've seen a lot of like research around things like sun cream and how damaging potentially that can be. And then if you look at like an evolutional standpoint, we're designed to live on this earth. We're not designed to have to wear sun cream. Like sun cream is a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
So we were designed to cope without sun cream, without sunglasses.
Yeah.
There's no other creature on the planet Earth that wears sunglasses, is there?
And slathering themselves in chemicals to protect themselves from the sun, which is the sun which actually everything needs to grow and live and be healthy and happy. If we don't see the sun, we get absolutely miserable. Take our dear friend
Yeah, 100%.
Brendo,
Yeah.
who
To be honest with you,
struggles
Harry,
quite
I
a lot.
think, yeah, I mean, I've been considering it myself, like with my own workload, because I've stopped doing exteriors, which has put me, I'm locked in all the
All
time now.
summer.
Yeah, all summer, but just generally, I'm inside all the time and having to make a conscious effort to get out in the sun or get
Yeah.
outside in
You
general.
do. Yeah, you do. So if you are working indoors throughout the summer, then you need to have 20 minutes outside in the sun for sure throughout your day. Like, definitely get yourself outside in that sunshine for 20 minutes minimum, because otherwise the, your body obviously runs on a clock, which throughout the day the sun will change its light. So through it, like for example, there's a lot of studies on the morning light and how effective that is at kickstarting our systems, basically. So the same with sort of people who go to bed in the day and get sort of a bit discombobulated. It's because throughout the day the sunlight will give our body a signal to do something and do certain things. And so biological clock, no, what am I thinking of?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're getting at,
Not
and
biological.
it's circadian rhythm, isn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Circadian rhythm. So so we need to send our body throughout certain messages throughout the day to do things, and that's as well why you don't want to be eating right before you go to bed, because then your body's, because of the light, has already started to shut down. So when you go to sleep, your body has lots of lovely time to repair itself. And if you're not sleeping long enough, or you're eating too late, you're starting your digestive system again, it all gets a little bit like, hang on. No one told me we're doing this now. And so that's why, I can't remember where I was going with that.
We've gone off on a trail, right? From Pilates listen, I'm here for it. It's fascinating. Like, one of the things I always say, I learn stuff from everyone I sit down with, and I've like the sunglasses thing has just blown my mind. Like, so, honestly, I'm like,
hearing one of your chaps on the other day, and he was saying that he's not getting enough sleep. Sleep is so important. I cannot tell you, your body needs that time. You are not a loser because you want to go to bed earlier. If you're getting up earlier, then you guys touched upon it. You were having the same. You were so close. I was screaming at the radio. You were saying, oh, but he gets up earlier. He hasn't changed anything. He hasn't gained anything more because he's just shifted the time he goes to bed, and then he wakes up earlier. So he does more in that early time. Yes, do more. If you have to wake up earlier because the kids are getting up earlier, do more in that morning. Don't just laze around and then be like, oh, my day's gone and now I must stay up later to have a life.
Yeah.
No, have your life in the morning. It's
Darren,
so much fun,
wasn't it? Cleaner carpets, Darren, because he was saying about his kids.
It's so hard. And especially when you've already got that stress, like you've already got a lot of stress in your life. Sleep is one of the things that can really help you manage that stress better, because it just helps your body to rejuvenate. You need that time. Just go to bed earlier. And also, like, staying up later to watch something, then you're using the blue light on your screens, and that's really bad for you, again, because it's a signal to your eyes. We didn't have that naturally. None of the other animals on this planet have that. So it
is. It's massively important. I read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Have you read that?
No.
Fascinating.
Ooh.
It sounds like it wouldn't be very engaging because it's a book about sleep, but it changed my perspective on sleep massively, and I'm so protective now of my sleep.
What did it say? What were
it just explains the science behind sleep, because one of the points he makes is sleep is something that everyone does for a third of your day every single day, and yet we know very little about it. We don't really understand why we do it. We don't understand what it does to the body, but he goes into that. So he talks about how certain chemicals build up in the brain, and when you sleep, that is the point where your body repairs and essentially drains those chemicals back out. And I can't remember what chemical it is, but it's a chemical that's related to Alzheimer's. High levels of it are found in people with Alzheimer's, which are also found in people that don't sleep enough, because the brain isn't given enough time to fully drain this chemical back out. So then you're topping up as soon as you wake up, and maintaining a high level of this particular chemical, which has then been found to be common in people that suffer in later life with memory loss and Alzheimer's and things like that. So,
so I'm preaching to the converted here, yeah.
yeah, it's I guess an idiot's sort of explanation of it. I just saw it as like a tank topping up. So throughout the day, you top your tank up. You need to sleep to drain it back down. So the following day, you can start with an empty tank.
I love that. That's kind of the opposite of how I think about it, though, which is really funny because, because I almost think that sleep rejuvenates you, and so so
it tops it back up.
Yeah. So you're draining the negatives, and you're topping up the positives.
That's it. I think because it was explained as a chemical building up, I had the
that makes so much
image
sense.
of a tank building up and then draining back out as you sleep. I mean, that was just a small section of the book. It then goes on to discuss a lot of things. Circadian rhythm is touched on, and blue light damage, and all these kind of various elements. But it's a fascinating book.
Yeah.
Really is. It changed my perspective entirely on sleep, because prior to that, I did used to look at sleep as I'm trying to think of the right term. I didn't give it its value, and it was one of those where I thought, well, if I only get 5 hours tonight, it don't really matter. No, it just means I'm a bit tired. But then when you look at the long-term physical effects, things like, physical training, if you're in the gym or you're bodybuilding or anything like that, sleep has a huge difference. Athletes. Yeah. And you could argue with what we do in the trades, you're throwing that all over yourself there, Harry. With what we do in the trades, I mean, okay, we're not athletes, but we do a very physical job day in, day out.
We are athletes. Excuse me.
Okay, I'll speak for myself. I don't feel very much like an athlete these days.
Because you're not taking care of yourself like one, but you're working like one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You're working like one. You don't give yourself the diet, the nutrition, the exercise, the grounding, the stretching that you should be, because most tradespeople work very hard physically, and it shows on their bodies after time quite significantly.
I can't argue that.
Almost everyone you speak to will have some kind of ache and pain related to their working life. And honestly, that's one of the things that I wish I was saying to you, that I wanted to sort of set up a page to kind of help educate people and stuff, but I don't know where to start, quite honestly, with it, because I just wish I could change. If I was president, if I was prime minister, the first rule I would make is that everyone's got to do a 10-minute cool down. And that can even be lying on the floor flat and just let your skeleton melt back into alignment. That would be it. And that would be enough to help so much.
Do you cool down after a day at work?
I have just started to do. So because of my shoulders being quite rounded and my ribcage and everything, I've got quite tight pectoral muscles, and that comes from working forwards. So we do a lot of this sanding, painting. So this is so overworked, and so is the neck. So one thing I tried to do sort of like exercise cool downs, and I wasn't really into it, to be honest. I hate doing something where you have to move into something then hold it for 30 seconds. I'm like bored. Bored after 15. Also want to get home. I've started to just lie down for 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I put my arms up into an L shape. And when I first do it, and I'd be keen to see if you do it and have the same problem as me. Anyone listening now could try it. Just lie down. Put your arms up into an L shape, so your elbow in line with your shoulder. I want to see how far away your hands are from the floor. Because if they're directly onto the floor, that's wonderful. You've got a nice open chest, like lovely.
I guarantee mine are nowhere near the floor.
But if you try and engage your abdominals to make sure that your rib cage is not lifting, you're not arching back, and you're not tilted, but you are lying in that nice parallel alignment. After a while, certainly after 5 minutes, my hands are so close. And then it gets to 10 and they're there. And I'm like, lovely, really nice. I just stretched there without, people, like when you go to yin yoga or something and you sort of contort yourself into a position where you're like, this really hurts. And they're like, keep holding it. And you're like, I hate that. Like, no one likes that. No one wants to be uncomfortable or pained. But if you've worked really hard all day and then you literally just lie down on the floor, you're kind of like, And what you're also doing is a little bit of meditation without even trying. That's how meditation starts. You just sit down. You just clear your thoughts. And people are like, I can't, I've got all this stuff going in my head. Yeah, well, think about all that stuff then until you've thought about it all. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about what I'm going to go do when I go home. Yeah, okay, I'll get that on the way home. Lovely. Organize your thoughts in your head. Use that time. Like, that's fine. That's just, or just listen to some music, or just, but do whatever you want. But just let your body have a little rest. Like, we get back in the van for an hour and a half. We're driving. We're contorted once again. Maybe the van doesn't fit us properly. Like, we're constantly on the go.
Let's take a quick break there to thank this episode's sponsors, Brewers Decorators Centres. Brewers have got over 200 stores nationwide. They're the premier destination for decorators, and they stock all of the best brands in the industry. Brewers give the best advice in store, and on top of that, you can get 10% off your first and second purchase, plus trade rates and free delivery when you sign up for a Brewers Pro Trade Card. A massive thanks again to Brewers for supporting the Talking Tradesman podcast and helping us raise mental health awareness throughout construction and beyond. Let's get back to the episode.
And then we get home, you've got to sort the kids out, you've got to make the dinner, you've got to take the bins out. Like, it never stops. Give yourself that 10 minutes. An athlete does a full stretch down after a couple of hours of training a day. We are working hard for 8, sometimes 12. Sometimes people do more than that, which is just, it's insane. So yeah, I just really think it's so important. I really would like to see more people doing it. And it's so funny how, like, I put a video on my TikTok and someone was like, oh, what if a customer walks in? I was like, mate, the customer was behind me. They think it's brilliant. They look at how hard you work all day. They're not going to begrudge you doing a little stretch. Are you serious? And if they are, not the sort of person I want to be around, sorry. Yeah. Oh, would you rather see me like a pretzel and break? Like, no.
Yeah, do you know what? It's nail on head though, Harrie, because you're so right. Like, and I'm a perfect example of it. I don't look after myself. I push my body a lot. I don't do any kind of warm-ups or cool-downs. I've never been to yoga in my life. Yeah, I'm a perfect example of that.
So would you consider just laying down on the floor?
Yeah. In fact, I want to do it. I'm not going to do it now, but I want to do it now.
You want to see if your arms
kind of intrigued. That'll be nowhere near. Like, I can already just doing that, I can feel the strain here.
Yeah.
So, okay. I know that I'm tight. I also know that my right shoulder is further forwards than my left. Again, years of working in the trade and doing what we do. I was told that before when I had some back trouble. So, I know that there's quite a lot that could seek a lot of improvement in myself, 100%. Yeah.
And that's another good thing. So I started doing, because I did one Pilates class about 5 years ago. And I was like, and it was at a gym and it was horrible. I was like, this is shit. It was really fast. There was loads of weights. I was like, it was like it was just a fitness class really. And I was like, I don't really know why people go on about Pilates, because it was just any fitness class. And I was like, it's not for me. I'm also not a HIIT girl. So not into that life. I'm quite chilled. I like things to come easy, So I went to this class and I got put off. My friend said to me, oh, come and try this reformer with me. And it's this new class. And I was like, okay. And we went there and I had been going for a massage like every other week because obviously the pain from decorating. Yeah. And it felt like I'd had a massage, but better. And I was like, what is this? And it's like, so going back to Joseph Pilates in the containment camp, he sort of had to use what he could to sort of create contraptions to help with this rehabilitation. So the Pilates reformer, there's a lot of debate around this. Some Americans say it's not so, but actually one of the chaps who is from the Isle of Man, where this containment camp was, has done a lot more research, and he is sort of confirming the rumours that the reformer machine was made on the idea of hospital bed springs. So that's probably a lot of information you didn't need, but
no. All I mean, actually, to explain to the people that are listening, the reformer table, I'll give you my impression. It looks like a torture table. It looks like
a BDSM.
It does look a lot like
dungeon.
That. So you're talking about, it looks like a rigid. I'm trying to describe one.
Yeah, everyone that comes in looks and thinks, they kind of have a tiny little bit of excitement in their eye, and I'm like, oh, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it looks interesting.
Yeah, no, it's like a low a low sort of bed, if you like. It looks like a hard bed, and some of them have got towers on, so have sort of like a big metal frame around it,
Yeah.
and it will have springs and pulleys and things. What it is essentially is a gym, an all-in-one gym.
Okay.
So the bed, the carriage, it's known as a carriage, and that moves, and it will be sprung, and you'll have several different springs of several different weights. So you have like a full spring, then you'll have like a half tension spring, and then a quarter tension spring, then another couple full springs. So you can do something and you can change the weight to suit what you're doing. That doesn't necessarily mean, obviously we associate the gym equipment with heavier weight being harder and you'll be stronger. You know, you're stronger if you're using the heavier weight.
Yep.
Well, this kind of, it can mean that, but the good thing is you can also have a really, really light weight, and that will mean certain exercises will be harder because you're destabilizing yourself. So sometimes the more weight adds more support to whatever you're doing. And so that can mean that actually, for example, some things on natural Pilates, I have arthritis in my knees. And some things are really, really painful because
Your
it's too much weight.
actual like diagnosed arthritis.
Yes, osteoarthritis. But I've had that since I was 12.
Really?
When I was 12, I was told that I had the knees of a 78-year-old. And they couldn't operate me. Why indeed? Why indeed?
I mean, because I know
terrible
arthritis is horrible. I've got it in a couple of knuckles, and it's like constant pain.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you've had that in your knees since you were 12.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some things I find quite painful, and the reformer allows it sort of can take that weight. It allows me to lighten the weight of myself. So when I'm doing certain exercises, so just going back to thinking about your shoulder, obviously, yes, you could have a dumbbell and work on one side. With the reformer, you can also do things like that. So you can just adapt it so that you'll be working more on one thing or the thing that's broken, or if you want to do a heavy spring for this muscle, but this muscle's a little bit, you can change that. Some people say you should work evenly, so you're not overbuilding something and then without rehabilitating the other thing, but that's all debatable as well. But yeah, I thought it was supportive where it needed to be, basically, so that I could do exercises that I couldn't do before. And I think that's why it works so well in rehabilitation. What's happening is it's really fun as well. And so people are loving it, and they're setting up studios and they're just doing like kind of HIIT classes in reformer studios. And so I'm a bit concerned that the essence of true Pilates is going to be lost. People will be going to these reformer studios, not experiencing Pilates, and then the reputation will be ruined, because actually they're called Pilates studios, but they're not offering Pilates. They're offering a HIIT class on a Pilates reformer machine.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I am concerned about that for the industry, but I think the more people that become educated on it, the more people that know how it should be and then demand that, I think would be a good thing. But I don't know. We'll see where it goes. There's other equipment like the chair and things like that, which is this little box thing with springs on. Once again, really, really useful. Loads of stuff that he sort of developed that really helped rehabilitation. And yeah,
I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know it was like a rehabilitation vibe to it. If you'd have asked me prior to walking in, what is Pilates, I would probably have said some sort of form of yoga is where my head and knowledge would have been.
Yeah, it's quite the misconception. And because essentially after, he sort of got all the ballerinas, then that's kind of led into the sort of high society in America, where obviously you have ladies who lunch, who then sort of started to go to Pilates, and it kind of grew in that sense. And so that's why we have such a strong connotation with a lady with a yoga mat and a latte under her arm, that's why, because it just went over there. Because we tried to use him for evil.
As many things in the world.
I wonder how it would have progressed over here had it not. But then it might not progress at all. It's just...
I can see your point, though, like a strong point, that it would be like a really valuable tool for people in the trades.
Yeah.
To harness it. I think Knowledge is the biggest stumbling block, isn't it? Really, because much like me, like people, a lot of men in particular, just don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
And then there's the vibe of, well, it's not for men kind of thing. So those are the stumbling blocks, I guess. But if you can educate people.
So I teach a class on a Saturday morning. I teach 3 classes. Very occasionally you'll have one chap come in. And I was talking to the girls about it the other day. I was saying I was coming here. And they were like, "Oh, you know, that's so good." And I was saying, I'd love to get tradesmen to do it, you know, because I know how effective it is for me, like as a tradesperson. And I just couldn't believe how healing it felt. But you do have to go to the proper classes, the ones who are actually cueing the correct movement and breathing and things like that. And they were saying it must be uncomfortable for guys to. She said, "Oh, you know, they were saying I've seen like every now and then we have a guy come in, and they do say, oh, I wonder if he's uncomfortable." Obviously, they don't mind him being there at all. Obviously, they'd love to see more men. They all love to get their husbands in there, but they just won't go.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if I put on just a tradesman class, but
Men
it's
only.
a hard one. Yeah.
I think, I mean, I can only speak from my perspective and how I would feel. I think I would be more inclined to do, if it was marketed like tradesman beginner, then
I mean, that would be so necessary.
I think I would be more inclined to do that than to try and get onto a pre-existing class, because my natural thought process would be, I'm going to look an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing. Either A, I'm going to take up all of your time because I'm going to be there going, excuse me, how does this work? How does that work? I don't know how to do this. And therefore ruining the class, as it were. Or B, you'd have, you know, people that are going to be concerned that, the embarrassment level, I guess, walking into a predominantly what you would imagine would be a female educated sort of base of people that are there already and know what they're doing.
So fascinating, that, isn't it? We could definitely dive more into that, because it's so many women, I think, don't have that level of embarrassment that men actually. I think because there's so much emphasis on being the man and being in control and, you know, looking a certain way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy how much that we don't realize that affects you.
Strangely as well, though, there's me saying I think I'd be more inclined to go to something that was marketed to like men's beginner. At the same time, ironically, I think the fear of judgment is actually judgment of other men. I wouldn't be as concerned.
Wild, but they wouldn't even be there if you went to another class.
Yeah, so ironically.
So would you? So, but if everyone else was in the same boat, so you're saying if it was tradesman beginner and you just knew you were going to be there with a lot of other guys who hadn't done it before.
Yeah, I think that would probably be my own personal. I'll say that I don't mind looking out of place, to be honest. So I wouldn't mind walking. If I were to go to an established class, my biggest anxiety around that would be that I'm going to be trying to take all your time as the instructor, because I'm going to be the one going, I don't know what I'm doing here. So that would be, I think I would go into a mixed class happily if I knew it was a mixed knowledge, like beginner level.
Well, one thing I will say on that, though, is that if you, for example, the classes that I hold on Saturday, we do always have a mixed ability. So they don't market the classes as beginner, intermediate, advanced, which there is some detriment to that. But also it means that actually anyone can come to class anytime.
Yeah.
It means I have to work a bit harder because obviously I have to give several levels to each exercise and things like that. But actually, once you're in there, you do actually to sort of put anyone's mind at rest who is thinking of going, who doesn't have access to a tradesman class, TMTM, which I haven't set up yet. You can go into a mixed ability class, because the thing with Reformer is I literally guide you through absolutely everything that you're doing. So even if you haven't even stepped foot on it before,
set foot on,
you will be into the swing of it within 10 minutes, because like I literally talk you through everything. Everyone else that goes
so it's easy
there,
to pick up.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what the plan is. So everyone has to follow my instruction. It's not something you can do without instruction. So, you know, I'll say, right, for this next exercise, we're going to have 2 blue springs and 1 red. You can add another blue. You can add a yellow if you want a little bit more weight. And then So I sort of give you the options, tell you what to put on, and then I'll say, we're going to come down lying onto our side. You're going to grab hold of that strap in front of you. You're going to pull it down and pop it onto your foot. You're going to reach your foot out nice and long into the mirror, and then you're going to do tiny little circles with your foot. You could follow that quite easily. You don't have to be obviously right now you're probably thinking, I have no idea what she just said, but
to a degree. But do you know what would probably help as well? I think, again, barrier to entry would be maybe some footage. So if you were to record some sessions, like with permission of people that wanted to do it, but just so people are a little bit pre-warned, they know what they're walking into. Because at the moment, I've got all these images in my head, but I haven't actually seen any reality to it. I haven't seen footage of anyone on a reformer.
That's crazy.
I've actually worked for a couple of clients that have had them in their house, and I've looked at them, and there's been the usual jokes of like, is that a torture table?
Yeah.
But I've never seen anyone use one. I've never seen any footage of it.
That's crazy. And actually, what I will say is there is footage on the internet, and one thing that does actually really piss me off is the ridicule of men using it.
Let's pause this episode there a moment to thank this episode's sponsors, Axis Decor, and take a minute to talk about the Silk Touch Ultra range. This range of brushes and rollers have hydrophobic filaments that maintain firmness in all paints, spreading them further. They resist paint build-up for easy maintenance, and they remain fine at the tip for exact filament to surface, placement and finer strokes. Further to that, they've got texturised tips delivering streak-free results. They hold paint back for even, controlled release. And thanks to their elastic tech, they bend to control as you like, and they have unrivaled shape retention. Built with a slip-resistant etched handle and corrosion-resistant stainless ferrule, these brushes are fantastic. As you can see, there's a range of these in front of me now. Big thank you to Axis Decor for supporting the podcast and helping us raise mental health awareness. Let's get back to the episode.
So there is actually, it really makes me cross because I want to get guys using this machine. And you have, because it's really popular within the sports field. So you have a lot of rugby players, rugby teams will go and have sessions. I mean, David Beckham's been using one for years. Like there's a lot of guys out there, professional athletics who are using this machine. But on Instagram, you'll see, oh, look at them struggle. And it will like film everyone like trying to do things, and they've all got the shakes and they're all really pushing themselves and all this kind of stuff. And the classes don't have to be like that. And actually, it's a really fucking good workout. Like I don't find that enjoyable. I don't find mocking anyone enjoyable, quite frankly. And I don't find it, it pisses me off. People send me those videos and I'm like,
well, it's damaging to try and get people in, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're putting a barrier to entry
them feel like they're going to be laughed at. What? Why is that a good thing? Why are you finding that funny? I don't find that funny. So yeah, that annoys me. And that's the only sort of thing you might see. And so yeah, absolutely. I think I'm always trying to get guys around me to do it, but I'm struggling because again of the notion that they think it's not a man's thing to do, or it's just crazy. It really is crazy.
100%. I think, speaking as a man on the subject, we don't give enough attention to like things like flexibility, stretching, all of those kind of things. It's more, I think focus is always more on power, strength, all that kind of thing.
Which ironically can be so improved by stretching.
With
strengthening and lengthening the muscle.
Yeah.
Like just there's so much benefit to be had on that. Like it's mad.
I think working in our industry, just having that dexterity and, like you said, the amount of times that we're on our knees, we're working with skirting boards, and then we're working with ceilings and covings and everything in between. And then you have those rooms where you've got rooms full of furniture and you've got to lean around and bend around and, all of that stuff. You have got to be quite flexible to not damage yourself, really.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly when it happens as well. Like that's when we get those little injuries, or we'll do something at work like that, overextend ourselves and then get home and be like, ow, what did I do today?
Whereas these days I've just got a sneeze, to be honest, Harrie. I think the older I'm getting.
Yeah, exactly. So. Like we need that flexibility in our muscles. And go back to the point where you were saying, do you think it can be reversed? Like, is there a point too far gone. And I don't think there is.
That's good
I
news.
think once,
I'm glad of
yeah,
that.
I think once
Yeah.
you start to look after yourself, you can definitely at least halt anything that's going on. And I think you need to sort of give your body a little bit of kudos in that we're so much more resilient than we think we are. On one hand, we are quite fragile, but on the other hand, we can rebuild ourselves. I mean, I had arthroscopy on my knee, keyhole surgery, because I had sort of synovial chondromatosis, which is
some long words, mate.
it was a long process. Basically, the synovium fluid around my knee started to crystallize, and the guy said it looked like there was the Milky Way inside my knee. Basically, it was so many black bits in there, and it was very painful when I was bending my knee. And he went in there. Ironically, I had to rest. I had took some time off work prior to the operation, and by the time he went in there, he said my body had there wasn't actually much in there.
Really?
So my body had sort of taken care of it through resting. However, while he was in there, he cut into a vein, and after the surgery, the nurses came around and they were like, "Okay, you can stand up now." And I was like, "I cannot stand on this. I cannot stand on this leg." And she was like, "Yeah, up you get, up you get." And I'm like, "No, I can't. You know. Listen. I've had horses. I'm a tradesperson. I'm not afraid of a little bit of shit, but I can't stand on this leg. Like, that's not happening." They got me out of bed. They made me put weight on it. Blood split everywhere. And they're like, "Oh, this isn't right. Get back into bed. Get back into it." I'm like, yeah, I did tell you. And what happened is he'd cut into the vein. And so instead of 2 weeks off that they mostly prescribed for a keyhole surgery, I had to have 3 months. So I couldn't walk on my leg for 3 months. It was crazy. And I couldn't believe it when I went back. It was so swollen. And they said, "We're not going to operate on it again. You just need to let the body handle it." And when you're like, my body is not handling this.
Yeah.
What? It was mad. And it did. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. It's not quite right now, admittedly, but is it not quite right because of how it healed? I mean, we've got all sorts of new research now on how ibuprofen affects the muscle rebuild and stuff like that, and it inhibits how everything repairs. So, and obviously, one of the things we're told to take is ibuprofen and paracetamol.
Yeah. Oh, it reduces swelling.
Yeah, reduces swelling. So funny. Also stops loads of other things going on. Obviously, the swelling's there to protect whatever it is. Like there's
it's the body's natural reaction.
It's a natural reaction which we want to interfere with once again.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, essentially it did its best despite whatever I was doing at the time. So where was I going with that? I can't remember.
We were talking about the arthritis initially, I believe, which again is another interesting thing, because arthritis is the body attacking itself, really, isn't it? It's an immune response.
It's an inflammation, isn't it? Do you take anything or?
No. A little bit. So I've done various research into. So there's another book. Have you read The Body Holds the Score?
I started to read that, I must admit, but I didn't.
So I've looked at various bits of research around things like inflammatory conditions like arthritis. And there's a lot of research stating that a lot of it can be stress related. And I think I've witnessed or felt that firsthand. My hands are worse when I'm stressed. Because I've got it, you can kind of see it at the minute, actually. You see that knuckle there that's red? So if you would feel that, there's a big lump there, and that's painful to like make a fist. So I've got, at the moment, these two knuckles are affected, but I've had it there before and that's gone down. Like that one's fine. My hands, it seems to move around the knuckles. When I'm less stressed and I'm in a better, I guess, frame of mind or whatever it might be, it goes. And then when I get back into a point of overworking, it flares up again. So I can almost feel with my body, when I push it too hard, it flares in certain areas. And I've been to the doctors about these, because initially when it first happened, I had like a big spur come up on this knuckle. And it was a big lump. So I went to the GP and they diagnosed it as a particular sort of arthritis. I can't remember the terminology, but essentially like crystallization. And I said, well, what can I do? And they pretty much went, nothing. It'll be like that forever now. And I'm like, what? They were like, they said they couldn't operate because I don't know, whatever excuses they came up with, and they essentially said that it would be like that forever. Could well get worse. Might well affect other joints. So I went away thinking, Christ, like,
Wow, this is me now. Thanks.
yeah, this is me now. I
Yeah.
work with my hands. That's me screwed, basically.
It does. I have, a little bit of a gripe with the medical industry in that way.
Mm.
I mean, I went to the doctors for, I can't remember what it was for now, but she took my blood pressure and she was like, "Oh, it's really high," and then they had to me wear a blood pressure machine. I don't know if you've ever had to wear one of those.
Long term,
Yeah.
no.
It wakes you up every 3 hours to take your blood. Now, as we discussed earlier, I need my 8 hours sleep, and I do not want to be woken. That stressed me out. And then they were like, "Oh, it's really high," and I'm like, "Yeah, because
Your
having
machine
this
is
attached
keeping
to
me
your
awake.
arm going up every 3 hours is really fucking irritating." And so basically, they said I had high blood pressure. Right, here's medication, and I'm looking at the list of the things on high blood pressure: bad diet, bad exercise. I'm like, well,
they didn't check any of those.
Exercise well. I eat really well. I love food. Love it. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, really, the only thing that I'm not ticking here is the stress. And I was like, how can I be less stressed? And this last year, I've worked really hard on that. I've had counselling. I've reduced my hours at work, so I only work 4 days a week now. And let me tell you, that has been a massive game changer. Like, I highly recommend if you can. I'm so much more productive in those 4 days.
Yeah.
So much more productive. I put my rate up to accommodate it. So I haven't lost that day's money. I'm working really well. I'm so organised because I've got that extra day to do that paperwork. And as self-employed people, we are somehow supposed to work a 9 to 5 and then extra to run the business.
Yeah.
How many other businesses work like that? They don't. It's insane. We don't even get paid for days off. We don't get paid for holiday. So when are we supposed to recuperate? Like, we just don't. So it's been transformative, and my blood pressure has gone down. It still says on my notes, refuses medication.
Really? Refuses medication.
So
that's the ironic thing, though, isn't it? And I guess a lot of it's down to budgets and pressures and all the rest of it. And I don't want to run the NHS under the bus. But when it comes to some of the GP diagnosis, they just read from a script.
They're struggling.
But they never, like you said, they don't sit you down and sort of go for the holistic stuff first. You know, tell me about your lifestyle. Tell me about your diet. Tell me, are you sleeping? Tell me. No, straight away, it's like, well, take this pill and that'll fix that.
Do you smoke? Constantly do you smoke? No. And they always look at me like they don't believe me. Like, and you're like, why are you asking if you're not even going to believe what comes out of my mouth? Do you drink? Not really. A little bit. Like, well, how much is that? You're like, well, like, are you going to believe when I tell you? Probably not. Like, it's just crazy. But they don't, like you say, they're struggling so much. And I think it's really important that we sort of do try and look at things holistically as much as we can, because ultimately a lot of the things that we've been told historically with regards to the medical industry are somewhat they change. It changes all the time.
Of course it does. And sort of to counter that, the problem is, certainly since I was a kid, I was raised with the notion of, it's okay if you're ill, go to the doctors and they'll tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
And we've all accepted that. But a GP has their limitations. They can't specialise in everything.
No.
But there comes a point where we actually have to go, do you know what? I'm going to take responsibility for my own health. And I might look at my own research and actually evaluate my own lifestyle, my own situation, and try and come to some conclusions myself.
Yeah.
You can't just put all of your trust in a GP or the NHS just because that's what we've been told is the thing to do.
Yeah.
Like I say, it comes down to a little bit of responsibility on ourselves, really, where we go, do you know what? Actually, it's my body, it's my life, it's me that's affected, so I'm going to do the best thing for me. Absolutely.
And it's so wild how readily people are happy to go on medication. And that is quite an American thing that's more coming over here as well. Like, there's a wonderful book actually touching on ADHD that's called Stolen Focus. So have you read that one?
No.
Oh, that's so good. And he basically talks about how people are becoming more and more disconnected and stressed, and they feel like they've got ADHD, they can't concentrate, or really struggle to focus, and it's about our lifestyles and the way that has impacted that. And it's something in the book he mentions about how like, so exhibiting symptoms, they're like a horse in a stable that does cribbing, or like bite onto the side of the stall, and they're saying, you can drug them, give them this drug, and it will stop them doing it. And you're like, yeah, you're blocking a natural response, like a pacing lion in a cage is because he is frustrated. He is going out of his mind, literally. Like, he needs to be out of that cage. Oh, it's fine, you can just drug them like a dog, a cat. It's just, and that frightens me coming over here. It's getting more common that people just kind of accept drugging themselves drugging.
Look, it's easy, Harrie, isn't it, as well? And I think, again, it comes to a little bit of accountability on ourselves, where, if somebody says to you, okay, let's take high blood pressure, you've got two options here. One, you can change your lifestyle. You can work out a bit more. You can look at your working scenario. You can evaluate your stress levels. You can do all these things. Or B, you can take this pill. People go, oh, so I get to keep everything as it is. I just got to take that pill.
Yeah,
that'll fix it.
But while you take that pill, slowly you'll get stomach ulcers.
Yeah.
And you'll get these kind of things and these kind of things. And they don't want to be like, well, there is a risk of this. It's not great, but actually at least it will lower your blood pressure, which will, reduce the risk of loads of other things. And it's like you say, it seems we're the easy way out.
Honestly, I believe, I don't go too conspiratorial here, but I believe we're being worked into the ground. I look at the changes in society that I've seen in my short time as a business owner, the changes in my own client base, the way that we have to work now to maintain what people refer to as a good standard of life. I think it's kind of set up to just keep them going, just keep them going, just keep them going, just keep them going. That's the vibe that I'm picking up. There's no emphasis, there's no sort of value put on time off. All that gets rewarded, the societal values, is pushed on hard work, work more, earn more, get more,
Yeah.
But I've mentioned this point before. I look at when I first started in business, which was about 25 years ago now, it would be quite common that I would work in households where there would, generally speaking, there'd be a housewife and the man would be at work. But they weren't all CEOs of £1 million companies. I'm talking about people that would maybe, be a line manager in a factory or whatever it was. And they were supporting. So whether it was the husband or the wife, one person could support the family. That doesn't seem to be the case now. It seems to be that it's always twin work.
Because consumerism.
Yeah.
How can you afford to give each child an iPad?
Yeah.
If you're on one wage, you can't. Like, consumers, it's just huge.
Well, it's out of control, isn't it?
It's out of control. And it's getting worse. And what I notice is the working class, the mass market, is really aimed at them. You never see really wealthy people walking around in name brand stuff.
No.
You don't see it. And when I was a child, we had, I won't go into too much detail. My dad had a Land Rover business, 4x4 garage, and one of his customers was very wealthy, and he was a baron in France. And when we went over to see them, I was expecting like that they would have games, like a high tech stuff. They didn't even have a color TV, and I couldn't believe it.
Really?
I couldn't believe that they didn't have and they had a nursery, and it had lots of toys, but no like new Cindy skates, or like it almost felt like going back in time.
Yeah.
And I thought, and it really makes sense now, and I see it because it wasn't marketed to them.
Yeah.
It wasn't marketed to them. They don't make money.
It's a point I've made before, Harrie, where, because we talk about the cost of living crisis, and a point that I've raised before is it a cost of living crisis, or is it a cost of things crisis? Because what do you define as living?
I saw a woman on TikTok the other day moaning about, saying she was crying on one post about how she couldn't afford to feed her children. And then she was receiving a Starbucks, blah, 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 from her husband comes home, brings her stuff. And you know, and you're
£7
like,
coffee.
yeah,
Yeah.
priorities, honey.
The
Got
thing
the
is,
nails
though,
done,
Harrie,
got
like,
the lips,
if you
no money
rewind
to
the
feed your
clocks,
kids.
let's go back to, say, the 50s. What did the average family, the average earner, have to pay for out of their wage? They would walk in the door, you've got your usual, you've got your mortgage, your electric and utilities and gas, water, which, yes, have gone up drastically. But you had those things, but you didn't have the televisions, the smartphone contracts, the
Oh, it's
subscriptions.
wild.
I mean, my house is a perfect example. We've got Sky TV, we've got Netflix, we've got Disney, we've got, Amazon, all these subscriptions that we now pay for. And look, I mean, critiquing it, I'm not living in a technology-free household. I'm probably one of the worst. But the reality is that we have all these things now. So is it that's putting us in crisis? Is that the reason now why we spend all our time at work? Because we're trying to pay for all these things.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's what you prioritize, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really, it comes back to, that's why I think if you just take 10 minutes to have a little think
Oh, yeah.
at the end of the day, just take 10 minutes to yourself, allow yourself to fall back into alignment mentally and physically. Like, how many women give themselves that time? They don't. And it's free. It's free. The sun outside is free. People are buying red light stuff. Go outside. It's free.
Yeah.
Like a grounding sheet. You must know where there is a park.
I must admit, I did laugh at that. Have you seen, I think it was last Christmas, one of the big presents that seemed to be going around was that mask thing. Did you see it? Did you know what I'm on about?
Yeah, the
that
red light mask.
Yeah.
The Iron Man mask.
The Iron Man mask. And I looked at the description because I thought, well, that looks a bit cool. What's that?
Cool.
And I just thought Iron Man. But
Yeah.
I thought, that looks cool. What's that? And exactly that. It said, like, it does this light that mimics the sun. And I literally said that. I was like, so you're going to buy a mask to sit in your house to mimic what is outside, or you could just step out the door. Like, we're just being conditioned. No, it's okay. You don't need to go outside. We can make it pretend to be outside while you're inside.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it?
Get a sunlight light, or you could just go outside.
Yeah, or you pay 300-400 quid for this mask thing that will reproduce what's in your garden.
Yeah, and then you're going to go and have a cigarette afterwards. Like,
you'll probably through the mask.
Yeah, that's it. It's just ridiculous, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I totally agree on that one.
Well, I think we've got to the point where society is crumbling. so yeah, society is crumbling. Take up Pilates.
Basically,
we were learning some lessons. I'm interested in it, genuinely. Like, I think I always use the same excuses, mate, when it comes to doing stuff like that, which is time. I haven't got time, but
you make the time.
Yeah,
you make the time, and you need to. And actually, it's just for your own well-being. If you think about how much time we waste on social media, I think people really can have a look and squeeze it into their day, even if it's at least once a week. I always just I'm never one of these people who I never die or anything like that. So, I don't put things off starting things. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do this every day. And then I just don't. And that's fine. Sorry for looking people attacked by the bush.
No, I was because I've sat you by the tree, which is attacking your hair. You can push it a bit further out of the way if you want.
That's right. So, what was I saying?
We had gotten into something odd with time. Yeah, time and doing things. Doing things that you said you were going to do.
I never do that. So I'm like, I'll do this every day. This is amazing. Like, I keep telling myself I'm going to do Pilates before I go to work. That has not happened for a year, but maybe it will. Maybe one day I'll do it, and that's fine. And I think don't be hard on yourself if you decide to start something really good for you and it doesn't happen. And so you think, I'll do it next week. No. Just try again tomorrow. Try again tomorrow. Don't wait for that new week. It's
a weird misconception, that, isn't it? And I've been guilty of doing it myself in the past, where you like with the gym, if I get back to training and there's that thing and I've got it, it's like I have to start the week well. Or if I
Yeah,
don't
it's so
get to the gym
bizarre.
on Monday or Tuesday, might as well forget Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday and try again next week.
So bizarre.
Isn't it strange?
Yeah, because your body
Yeah.
resets 24 hours. So why wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Like, why are we putting all this emphasis on Monday? And also, is Monday really Monday? Because
Is it a thing?
we've
Yeah,
missed out a month, haven't we? Didn't we originally have 13 months?
apparently so.
So, you
Yeah.
know, like...
It's all concepts and structures in society. You talk about days of the week, like what is a day?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, today's a perfect example. It's Sunday, it's Mother's Day. It's all just
Happy Mother's Day to
constructs.
all the mothers out there.
This won't be out on Mother's Day, Harry. So anyway, it's long gone. It's past. Everyone's forgot about it. In fact, by the time this is out, I don't even know when Father's Day
Happy
is. But
Father's
probably,
Day.
yeah, exactly. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
But it's all constructs, like constructs in society. To me, again, Mr. Conspiracy, but it's a mechanism of control. Like, how do you tell people that they have to work on certain days and the working week? We all just accept the working week is Monday to Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going into that just briefly and with linking our thoughts on the medication and stuff like that, obviously, women, what we deem now as witches, obviously we burned them at the stake, like because of Christianity, saying that these women who were making healing potions from the natural earth are ungodly.
Burn them.
Yeah. So now we did that as a society. Like people agreed with that. I mean, you know, look what happened in Germany. Like, it's amazing how a society can be rallied to be so against something
Very
so
easily.
natural, and it's frightening. So actually, if we sort of just kind of hop back to that and think, well, you know, these women on the fringes of society who were making these potions and actually were the original midwives and you know, birthing these babies and you know, healing from the earth, like, we could learn so much from them. Like, we could learn, I mean, was it you? I was just talking about this. It might have been my uncle and auntie last night, and they were saying how it's funny how when you Google things, it's being removed from Google. So the common knowledge, the knowledge that we naturally had of how to heal things, is being lost because it's being replaced by medication.
Yeah.
And so the old ways of how to do things aren't as accessible. And I think that's quite frightening.
Yeah.
In terms of where we're going. Again, we're doom talking here, but I don't want to do that.
No, I think it's really correct. I have these conversations with my son quite often, and you look at, you know, say the Armageddon scenario, right? Not even Armageddon. Say electricity was turned off tomorrow and it was gone forever, right? So immediately you've lost communication. How many people these days have got the skills to actually survive? Like, with the exception of probably farmers who do that for a living. Like, I mean, and myself included, I'm used to being able to go to the supermarket, get my food, communicate through technology and all the rest of it. Like, the problem with that is we're so reliant on technologies now, and we've had our core survival skills are now deemed unimportant, that if anything ever happens, but we're putting a lot of trust in the powers that be.
Goodness, yeah.
You know, that are going to be, and I'm not suggesting that there's this undertone of evil that are, you know, setting us up for a big fall. I think a lot of it is coincidentally the way that things evolve and move. But we're putting a lot of control, you know, and even stuff, like, not to go too far with it, but things like moving into electric vehicles. We're putting all our control into things that can easily be removed, taken away and switched off. Cashless societies, all the rest of it.
100%. You know, my mum won't have a electric, she's going to kill me for saying this, you know, the electric fobs, like bleeper button
for
the car.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because when obviously we had the garage and she was driving a car around the roundabout once and the central locking failed and the car broke and she couldn't get out of the car.
Really?
And so she just, no thanks, I want a key. No, thank you, I want a key.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we were going to the car the other day to get the car seat out with my niece and she was like, bleep it. And you know, and you're like, no, it doesn't bleep. And she was like, mortified. And I was like, yeah, this is how we open cars in the olden days.
Yeah.
With a key in the olden days.
Yeah. When it's mechanical, it can't not work, can it?
Yeah, exactly. And you know how to fix it. My God, my van's been telling me that I've got an issue with the AdBlue tank.
Yeah.
For about a year now, and it keeps counting it down. It did shut me down in the petrol station once, like I couldn't turn it back on, but then Dan came and like jump started it and reset the thing. But now it's just decided it's not there anymore because I've ignored it so often. It's like, oh, okay, she's clearly not going to do anything about this, but because I refuse.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a new thing, like there's nothing wrong with it. You just want me to replace that part so you can keep making more money. And this whole, I'm very aware this whole van is rigged like this. Not doing it. I'm not playing your games.
I don't blame you, mate. Revolt. But it's concerning. And like, I must admit, I'm a bit of a hypocrite when it comes to certain things, because with the whole push for cashless, I was very much like, we need to keep cash.
Yeah.
Because it's so frightening to think that you're putting all that control into, electrics, essentially, that are controlled by other people. But it's so easy to, like, it's so difficult these days with actually using. I mean, all the high street banks are closing. I had this, not an argument, but I put a clip out the other day about taking holidays as a self-employed person and the cost of a holiday when you're self-employed, because not getting paid holiday pay. When you look at it with lost earnings, it kind of doubles the cost of the holiday, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, somebody piped up and said, essentially, well, you self-employed lot, you have always got loads of cash that you're being paid, so surely you just use your cash for cash jobs.
One person has paid me cash in the past 5 years.
It's done with, isn't it? Honestly, Harrie, like, and to anyone else out there, I don't remember. Admittedly, 20 years ago, on a semi-regular basis, customers would say, do you want cash? Now, I don't remember the last time I got asked if I wanted cash. Nobody uses it anymore. And even if I did get paid cash, do you know what I've got to do? I've got to find a bank to put it in.
Yeah, and then no banks.
And yeah, exactly. So it's a pain in the arse now, because I've got to try and find a local bank that is open past
and also,
3 o'clock.
Because you do have to put it in the bank, because we're living hand to mouth and we can't afford to keep cash under the mattress.
If I did a job for a week or 2 weeks and somebody paid me in cash, I can't just go, oh, well, I'm going to put that in my pocket. Exactly. Do you think I can afford to do that? No, I've got my living costs to pay for. I've got my rent, my mortgage, my Netflix subscription, and all the rest of it. So I've got to put it in the bank, which means it's got to be declared anyway. So no, unfortunately, now it is a pain in the arse.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying, because on the other side, I'm like, but we need to keep hold of it.
I know.
But
I had this exact same argument with this guy in the pub the other day, and he was saying, but surely you love cash. Like, if you come do this job for me, I'll pay you cash. And, you'll really like that. And I'm like, no, I won't, because you're going to expect a very hefty discount, which won't balance for me, because I still need to use that cash and I can't spend it anywhere. It doesn't benefit me. No. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I mean, to be fair, I come in this pub once every 3 months and you're here every other day, so you probably are spending your cash, and it works for you that way, and that's fine. But it just doesn't work for me like that.
You can't really use it on half as much as what we used to anyway.
Exactly.
Because you eat out in a lot of places, you can't use it. It's not, I don't
think we have the reserve to use it in the way that it would have been used originally. We just don't have that reserve.
But does that not show you how things have changed as well? Because back in the good old days, you could have perhaps had your cash and put it under the bed.
And also because, going back to what you were saying, and just affirming your point, really, things like, if you bought a software for a computer, you would buy the CD and then you would install the software on your computer. Now they want you to pay for software monthly.
Yeah.
You're paying for it constantly. You're paying for everything constantly. And it's like, it's unsustainable. Yeah. We are all in burnout. We're all flying too close to the sun, as my therapist would say.
Icarus.
So, I just think we've got to take a step. But we've got to, like you say, take responsibility for yourself. Yeah. Start looking at what you're eating, looking at how you're moving, looking at how you're behaving throughout the day. What's taking your time? My friend is really good at saying to me when I'm like, oh, I don't have time this morning. But how much time did you spend on this? And then how much time have you allocated to do this task that you want to do? And I'm like, none. I've allocated no time. You're right. You're right. I feel like I've been told off, but damn it.
It's true.
It's
Yeah,
true. We got to take
yeah,
responsibility.
we're masters of our own destiny, but it's also very hard to step off the tracks that we are placed on as a society.
I think going to bed early is the first start.
I'll be going to bed early tonight. In fact, I love an early night, mate. I was in bed by 9 o'clock last
Me
night.
too. Mine's
I think I was
regular
asleep.
8:30.
Ange would confirm, but I was asleep by about 9:30.
Oh,
So yeah,
lovely. Although we
I'm
lost that
all
hour,
for
didn't
that.
we?
I didn't realise until I got here this morning.
No. Oh, you were here really early then. Oh,
No. I wasn't here that early. I meant I just forgot about the whole thing.
Oh.
Because I went off the time on my phone, which had automatically updated.
Okay.
And I just completely forgot. I think I heard somebody talking about the hour thing. I was like, oh, yeah.
That's hilarious because I looked at my watch a minute ago, 20 minutes ago, and thought, oh, we've not been talking for very long. No, we've been talking for an hour.
Plus an hour. Yeah. Do you know what, Harrie? We
still.
haven't even talked about you and your
No,
business,
we
how we got
haven't.
into the trade.
Should we save it for next time?
Well, it's up to you. I'm happy to talk, mate. I always get popped to the toilet though, and then we can we do that. I'll pop to the toilet, then we'll do part B.
Okay.
You down for that?
Sure.
Yeah, all good. And I'm back. Are you all right? In terms of, did you want to?
My hair is like, but it's just me. That's natural. So that's what everyone comes to expect. It's a walking head of hair.
There's just a lot of hair, Harrie. To be fair, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
It's quite an
That's
achievement.
my only attribute. It's actually because of my auntie. My hair,
Your hair is because of your auntie.
Yeah. So my auntie had basically long dark hair my whole life. She's still alive. She still has long hair, and every time we used to see her, I thought she doesn't age.
Oh, really?
This woman does not age. Like everyone else changes around. They're all different haircuts all the times, this, that, the other, different dyes, different colours. And I was like, that's my auntie just staying the same. And I was like, what a fantastic thing. And so I've never had a different haircut. And then I realised I was autistic.
Fair enough.
And I thought, do you know what? This makes my same haircut my whole entire life make a lot of sense. There are a lot of things in my life that I keep exactly the same. Yeah. And I think that might be the reason why.
There you go. Well, I mean, it's got credentials, though. I understand what you're saying. Like keeping it the same, yeah. It's.
I don't know if it's working for me because sometimes when people see me, they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I've had a hard paper round. Okay." Maybe it's not working for me in the same way it worked out for her. Maybe she has other skills. I don't know. Good face cream.
I'd say it works. Well, let's do part 2 then, Harrie. Let's get into Harrie Interiors and how that all came about and started and how you got into the trade, why you got into the trade.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I'll quickly say when I was in university, my friend was working in a laundrette on an army barracks. And she said, I'm going to university down in Plymouth. Please, can you come and work on this in this laundrette, for part-time to help because I don't want to leave this woman who runs it. Pat, she's quite vulnerable. And the boys kind of take a bit of advantage. And I'd like to know that someone is in there that I can trust. And I was like, sure. I was a yes person. Like, yeah, I'll do that. Why not? So I went to work in this laundrette and pots of coins everywhere. And the guys would come in, dump their bag down and just dump some change in the pot. It wasn't very regulated.
Right.
And I'd done some business studies at school. And so I just sort of reorganized it a little bit, set some systems in place. And then shortly after, Pat fell down the stairs and broke her hip. It turned out she was 81. And she probably shouldn't have been working there, bless her. By the way, the stairs was an accident and I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Just put that on the record.
I wasn't thinking, I don't think anyone else was, but now you've highlighted it, I am questioning it.
Well, we'll cut that bit up. So I was then left running the place. And the I sort of turned it around and, made it work quite successfully. And the army, look, this is really good. We'd like you to stay here on an encroachment contract. So it means that you're not really working for the army, but you're working for the army.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, carried on. And after a while, long story short, a guy came in and he was like, wow, I was here 10 years ago. I can't believe you're still here. And I was like, what?
Oh, light bulb moment.
I've been here 10 years. 10 years? What? And so I was like, okay, I've got to go. There was a lot going on. I'd been messed around an awful lot by sort of the management company that the army had bought in to run the army, essentially. There's a lot of commercialization that's gone on there. And they would, because I was an encroachment to the contract and they couldn't quite understand what that meant, it meant that every 2 years when they had a new manager in position, the person would come in, tell me that I'm not supposed to be there, that they're going to take all my money, all this kind of stuff. And it went on and on for 2 years, for 10 years. And so it was really stressful. I was really stressed. And to the point where at one point I remember passing out because I was so stressed in there. It was crazy. So I was like, I've got to stop doing this. I've got to go and do what I want to do. I want to actually really work with animals. And I really fancy going to work with, I saw this course on some kind of animal care, and you could go and work in Africa with the lions. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm going to go and do this. And then I realized I needed $9,000 and I didn't have $9,000 and I couldn't apply for another fund because I'd already got a degree. And I was like, oh, so I'll just work for a bit, get some money together and then go and do what I really want to do. Here we are.
Right.
Almost another 10 years later.
Still haven't gotten to the lions.
No. So yeah, I started working for this guy who was local to me. And unfortunately, I found myself sort of nitpicking his work a little bit and being not quite happy with the finish he was producing. He then upset one of the customers that we were working for quite badly, and he ruined her doors. And then I said, you're going to have to replace those and just do them, redo them. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you just have to like apologize, like, and he was, yeah. And then build her for them. And I was like, you can't break something of hers and then bill her for it. Yeah. Bill her for replacing it. She also felt the same way. And she said, look, Harriet, I really like the work you've been doing here. I'm quite particular. And if I want something done, please understand. She literally sat me down and was like, please understand that if I ask you to put the TV on the wall, you've put the TV on the wall. And then I tell you I don't like it and I want it moved. I will pay you for it. Don't think I'm just being, you've done the job and then you get paid for that. She'll pay you for everything I ask you to do. I might change my mind on stuff just to warn you. I would say I started with a customer who had particularly high expectations. And so I carried on working for her without him. And I think it really set me in good standing to deliver of quite a high service. Yeah. Because, I'm quite a particular person also.
You do some incredible work. To be fair, yeah. You are a very good decorator.
I try. So for whatever reason, I've always wanted to sort of do the best. I wanted to, and because I was very conscious that I've come from not being traditionally trained, I wanted to do the best work so that if the best decorator in the country came in, he couldn't find fault. That was my goal. So that was basically the standard that I set for myself, which in hindsight was absolutely ludicrous because it's really hard and it takes a lot of work to deliver an exceptionally high standard all the time.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to pay for it.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. It's a battle I've had with myself over the years where you have to, I've always been very business minded, probably more so. I see people struggle. I think social media's got a bit to play to it where people, they put their own ego to a degree above the business. And there's a competitiveness of having to deliver the very best work. If your client's not paying for it, you're doing it out of your own pocket. And that's something that I'll never do.
Oh, well, I wish you had told me that earlier.
But managing client expectations and working out what standard they actually want as a service, that is a key skill, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And one that you develop over time because there's so many people who tell you that they just want a quick job.
Oh. Yeah,
who absolutely don't.
Yeah,
Or they
absolutely.
do, but they don't realize that the finish of said job and how they're describing it is not going to equate to what they're actually
Well, that's it. But
for.
they're never going to turn around to you and go, actually, Harry, what I want to do, I want to pay you as little as possible for the best job possible, which is what they're really saying.
Yeah, that's what they mean.
Yeah.
But again, that's also, even that can be out of the realms of what they think is the best. Like, it's just, I mean, and of course they do. And actually, I've always sort of like, within my business, been quite conscious of that. So I'm very conscious of things like, not only for the environment, but also for the cost to the customer. To keep materials low, I'll always work out exactly how much material is needed. I've always done things like that to make sure they're paying the least. Someone on TikTok said to me the other day, you could use ready mix. Have you seen this new white filler for Toupret? And I think it's ready mixed. I don't know, I could be wrong. And I was like, yeah, but I think it's ready mixed, isn't it? And they were like, yeah, I think so, but and I'm like, well, that can be 4 times the cost of the mix-up powder with the quantity that you're going to get from it. So, and they're like, oh, but the customer pays. And I'm like, yeah, the customer is paying, but the customer's also paying my wages. And if I can keep their material bill as low as possible so that, they can then pay a little bit extra to have a really nice job, I'll do that. And I don't mind doing that. And, if you don't want to, that's fine. Like, you do you, hun. But,
yeah,
like
100%.
that's basically how I've worked. So yeah, I've been doing that for 8 years now. I did study during that time. I sort of then put myself on different courses at Dulux Academy and Paint Tech Academy. Paint Tech Academy, I think it's called. Both of those courses I really enjoyed. Wallpapering. I actually met Hannah from Colour Coated at a wallpapering course in Dartford. Well, she was on her NVQ.
Okay.
She did full training with them, and I went in on the wallpaper weekend or whatever it was.
That's where you guys met.
Yeah. And so I've done a lot of courses, and I also used to buy old textbooks, so like from eBay, like people's painting and decorating textbooks in their courses.
Yeah.
So I used to read those, and then obviously gained a lot of knowledge from the elders online, which I'm ever so grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, like, it's a hell of a resource. I mean, me personally, so I was kind of born into it, but I was only ever sort of trained to the level that I was trained to by my father. So for a long time, like before I hit social media, I'll be honest, I thought I was probably the best in my area. And then when I got on social media, I was like, shit, there's a lot of levels above where I am here.
I think I see that from the attitude of some guys. The attitude of some guys is quite, it's almost like they're pissed off about my existence. But,
really?
Yeah. And it's sad because obviously I have absolutely no thoughts on theirs. Like, you do you. There's so many customers to go around. I've booked up for a year. I don't have any problem. Like, I'm not trying to steal your customers, trust me. Like, your customers don't want me. Like, it's fine.
Honestly, I always think of the industry as a bit of a pyramid system. So you've got very few at the very top doing the very top work. But that's not for everyone. Like the majority of work is that base layer, which I would probably argue that, most people who employ a decorator do, to one extent or another, just want a room painted. They don't want perfection.
Those are not my customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're somebody's customers.
Yeah.
And somebody can make a good business out of that.
Absolutely.
It's just not you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's one of the things I've never understood, where you get people that jump on other people's work and it's like, oh, I've zoomed in on that picture and there's a bit of wall there. It's like, hold on a minute. Like, you don't know what their specification was.
You have absolutely no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I've worked all ends of the scale. So for years we used to do insurance contracting, and it was a hard one to get my head around. I did eventually because the money was there. But the caveat with that work was you were there to return it to the condition it was in prior to the damage, the insurance claim, whatever that might be. And to the extent that if, say that wall behind you had got like a water damage stain on it, our job was to go in, stain block it and repaint the wall. if that wall had cracks and holes, and you were not allowed to fill them. That was part of the. You were literally not allowed to.
Oh, it'd give me nightmares. I'd go home and I wouldn't be able to
exactly.
sleep.
But the reason was, like, depending on the insurance policy, it was varying levels of cover. But say somebody had got a basic cover, because people might be listening to this thinking that's ridiculous. Why would you not? Why would you not just do it out of the goodness of your heart? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if you then make that wall look A1, the rest of the house, and people did do this, the customer would then be like, well, it doesn't match now.
Yeah.
It doesn't match. So you've now got to decorate the rest of the room. Oh, and this room leads into the hallway, and now it looks different to the hallway. So now you've got to redecorate half my house out of your own pocket, because the insurance company won't get pay you.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, and that you would get pulled up, and the insurance company would take the side of, look, the policyholder has claimed this. We agree with them. You need to do the work, but we're not paying you. So you had to, it was literally a script of work, and it was a case of, if it's not on the list, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Down to stupid things like, if corking is not on the list, you don't do it.
That's probably set you up really well in your own business, though, to sort of be quite specific about what you're going to do.
Very
and how
much
you're
so.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Which is really good for the customer, because I think sometimes people are quite vague about what they're going to offer. I don't know if you've got...
yeah. When it comes to quoting, I itemise everything. I'll probably have taken that away from that. It's itemised top down, from point of floor protection to end product. It's itemised, because that, to me, that then gives me the standpoint of, if there are any changes to the job spec or any, I've got clear standing. Look, as you can see, that's not in the quote. But if you are vague on it and you put decorate a room, well, if that job specification changes or you come up against unforeseen, well, you've just said decorate the room. You know, so you're in a bit of a dodgy ground. Some customers will be great. Yeah, I understand. You obviously didn't know that all that plaster was going to fall off. Other customers will go, well, your quote says decorate that room.
Wild.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
I've seen it. So, yeah.
And then they come up against problems, don't they? Yeah. Yeah, that would never be me. And I've shot myself in the foot a few times where I've sort of let something slip, and then I'm like, and this is why I don't do this, and this is why I don't do this.
But this is how we learn, though, Harrie, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I must admit, look, I'm far from perfect, and I've made a lot of 25 years now. I've made a lot of mistakes in that time, but I've learned from them, which is why I'm now in the position where I'm quite confident to act and be the way that I am.
Yeah.
Is off the back of mistakes that have cost me money or time.
Yeah.
So,
I think I've worked a lot of time for free, actually. And I'm like, yeah, because people say, oh, how do you know? How do you just know that? How do you know that? I'm like, well, because I've done it a million other ways, and this is the best way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, because I've tried. Trust me. But yeah, So yeah.
I mean, the subject, obviously, with the podcast, has been set up around the fact that there's this mental health crisis within construction. How have you found that side of things, like in terms of your own mental health? Like, how have you coped with the pressures of working in construction?
I would say my mental health particularly is probably quite different to a lot of guys who are working in construction. Obviously, I'm going to break this to you very gently, and I don't know how you're going to take it, but
go for it.
I am a woman. And so
shit. Now you tell me, Harrie, after all this time.
Awkward, I know. So that has obviously had its challenges in that I've been to do a quote, and the guy will stand there and look me up and down and go, well, who's going to do the work? Obviously not me, pal. So that's the attitude you're going to take. And I've been to site where guys are like, what are you doing in those boots? Like, why are you dressed like that? Why have you come here? And I'm like, that, well, it's because this is my job. And it's not joking. It's not. It's quite aggressive, and people do take exception to my existence within the industry. But I've had quite a few personal situations, which has actually led to me being diagnosed with complex PTSD, and so I am actually a bit careful with how and what and where and who I work for. I'm quite lucky that I can choose my customers. and if I don't feel comfortable in a certain place, then I won't work there, or with someone in particular, then I won't work for them. And and I do only want to work for nice people. So I've all my customers are really nice. Like I have attuned my customer base to be good, nice people.
In fairness, it was a bit of a light bulb moment you just saying that. I guess one of the things that I don't really consider, because I'm very focused on my own path, is if I go and quote a job, I never have to worry about, am I safe here? Because I'm always quite confident that I am, and that I could handle anything that might come my way. But I guess as a female in the trade, you have got that going into people's houses, that there is that concern of, well, potentially, guys or groups of guys, or, well, it don't even have to be groups of guys. It could be a husband in a family, but, or even, any sort of perspective or scenario that you want to come out with. But there's that different consideration of
to caveat
safety.
that, I'm sure there are women who are very happy to go and work anywhere, and there are also probably men who are also concerned about who they work for. There's definitely always going to be, maybe a minority of each.
There's outliers in every situation, always. I'm talking like the majority sort of, general feeling, as it were.
Yeah.
It's just not something that I guess I would have to consider. And I don't think, speaking to other male tradesmen, it's not like on the list of, when you talk about, is that customer a good customer? I don't think many people go, are they a safe customer?
Yeah.
Which is maybe a consideration that
I text someone to say, obviously if I'm going to do a quote then, and I don't know who it is, then I have to give the address and
where you are,
where I am.
Of course, yeah. Again, I hadn't even considered that.
That's wild, isn't it? How the difference. Also, though, I mean, I did have a stalker, so I am probably a little bit more concerned than most people.
Of course, yeah.
So, I've told you about that before, but that's quite a frightening situation to be in. And also because even though, the restraining order is done and all that kind of stuff, you are never quite sure when they're going to show up again, because they're still around, they still exist.
You're doing a job where you move around.
I'm doing a job where I go into people's homes, and when you go to do a quote, you don't know who you're turning up to. You don't know who's going to open the door. And it is something that is always sort of a consideration for me, for sure.
I mean, on that subject, like how much are you comfortable talking about in terms of the stalker situation?
I can tell you about him, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Then obviously let's sort of talk about what happened there.
So it was a long time ago, and it was a chap that I met in college, and just briefly, he was a friend of a friend, and he, we're acquainted, said hello, didn't think much of it, and then a few weeks later, oh, where's your friend? And he's not coming to college because he loves you so much. And I was like, when you're 18 or however old I was, that is so flattering. I was like, this is just wonderful. Like, thank you so much. And obviously a joke, right? Like, no, not a joke. 2 years later, he messages me. I think it was MSN.
Yeah.
That's how old we're talking. Yeah. That's really dating me. And he was like, how are you doing? And I just thought I remembered that, like that he kind of went missing and they said that. So I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just, just about to move in with my boyfriend. I'll just get that in there first, because you cannot just say no to a man as well.
It's got to be a reason.
You cannot. You must give a reason, and it must be another man for protection. And he said, oh, okay. And then he's just carried on talking, and I didn't reply because I was busy or whatever. And then he messaged me again. And then he messaged me again. Then he messaged me again. And I was like, I think I said something like, he was like, why aren't you talking back to me or something? I think I was like, I'm quite busy, I kind of brushed him off. But then he continued to send me an email. Oh, because I then blocked him. And then he moved to email, or moved to something else and then to email. I kept blocking him, and he kept showing up in other places. And he would send me an email every 2 minutes with a constant stream of dialogue. And it was...
What sort of things was he saying?
How this is just a game of cat and mouse, and I know that you're just toying with me, and did I see you today?
Yeah.
And when I'm through with you, you won't be able to ride your horse again. And I'll never forget the day that we dropped you off and you left your front door open for me. And I was like, and at the time, my front door was open. Like my front door, I live in a small village, and we didn't really lock our doors back then. Like it was not something that you did. And I mean, my God, you can guarantee I locked my door every day after that. But it was quite wild. And I was like, this is getting a bit much. I thought it's absolutely hilarious at the time. Not funny. So I then reported him, and because my boyfriend at the time was like, I think you should go to the police. Like this is a bit serious.
Deranged behaviour, yeah.
And I was like, okay, went to the police station. She was like, yeah, come down. Like, you just have to sign a form thing. And then, that's fine. I was like, okay, I went in there. She said, I'll print off the emails that you've got, So I went in there with this book, and she was like, oh my goodness. And so she thought what was going to be a 10-minute quick consultation ended up being a 2-hour where she went through everything and was like, you haven't replied. Like, where's your replies? Like, and I was like, I didn't reply. I haven't replied. And he was just obsessively typing. And it was really frightening. She said it's one of the worst cases she'd ever seen, and that, it's exactly what the Harassment Act was brought in for, and that, there's definitely something they can help me with about this. And I was like, oh, okay. Everyone was taking it so seriously. I just thought it was hilarious. It was crazy. And then, so the police went around there and said, you need to stop doing this. And apparently had like a little shrine of all my Facebook photos on the wall. And they said,
that's fucking terrifying, isn't
I
it?
need to make sure that all of my Facebook profiles and all my public facing images are offline, like inaccessible to the public. And so I was like, okay. And then he sent me a message saying, you should have sent more police next time. Like, do you think you can stop me? Or something like that.
Christ.
So obviously the police said, if he contacts you again, let us know. So I said that. So then they went round there again, and then I got a restraining order. But that doesn't reassure you in any way, shape or form, because you're still very much aware that this person can just break it. It's not physical. Like, it doesn't. And they're like, the policeman rang me and said, are you really sure you want to do this? Because this will affect him for the rest of his life.
Well, yeah.
He was just off his medication. I'm like, okay, well, what if he's off his medication again? Like,
that's crazy. Yeah.
But it was just a wild time. And unfortunately, it left a really deep scar, because I didn't quite realize over the years, I would then sort of, when everyone would go out, I'd go around and lock all the doors and windows. And I thought, I was really paranoid to being on my own. I never used to feel like that. I never used to be scared.
Yeah.
And it did make me really conscious. And it's not. So, yeah. So it was one of the things that sort of came up on my PTSD thing. And every time I hear a noise outside, I was like, oh my God. And that, coupled with having the van broken into.
It's essentially like,
made it worse.
To sort of like quantify it, it's like living under constant threat, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Not knowing where that's coming from.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Which
stuck
is horrific.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly. Stuck and talking about high levels of stress, like that'd be horrendous.
Yeah. I mean, that was also shortly after that, I sort of said no to a guy in a club who, he was like, oh, do you want to dance with me? And I was like, oh, no, thank you. I've got a boyfriend. Again, you can't just say no. I've got a boyfriend. And he said, oh, he's a fucking slut. And I was like, that is the opposite of what I'm saying, but okay. And we started hurling insults at one another, and we got into a fight. I just, and I think I think I've just been really wary of strangers, wary of people really since then. Another time I was out in Maidstone with my friend, and this guy bumped into her, and I said, "Oh, watch it," and he turned around and started beating me up and knocked me unconscious, and I ended up in hospital. And so I think I am quite conscious of people.
Understandably so, yeah. I'm sorry you've been through that, Harrie, to be fair. Because
You
it's
know,
they're
these
not
things happen.
experiences that you can just, put behind you, are they? So,
No, it was, I mean, for me, it was the police calling me the next day saying he says he's really sorry, and so we're just going to let him go. And I was like, okay,
the one that had
with
knocked you
concussion.
unconscious,
Yeah.
because he said he was sorry, they just
Yeah.
let him
Felt
go.
really bad. Couldn't remember any of it. Was high on something. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that is incredibly wild.
So yeah, I've just had my fair share of run-ins with chaps who are not as lovely as you would like them to be. So
Yeah.
I am conscious who I work for, and I do only want them to be lovely people, and I want to do lovely work for them, and so it's really a nice deal.
It's completely understandable that you feel that way, and it's nice that you've built yourself up to a point where you get to do that. Like you don't
Yes,
have, you're not
lucky
financially
actually.
pressured to go, do you know what, I feel a bit dodgy about this one, but gotta take it.
Yeah,
Like it's nice that you've got that.
I feel quite lucky actually to be able to
I
sort
don't
of
think you're not
choose the
lucky, you've
work.
earned it. You've put yourself in that position. It hasn't landed at your feet.
No, but people can be in a lot. People can, I mean, people can be innocent and walk along the street and then get accused of murder. Like, I think you're
Yeah,
lucky. It doesn't matter the situations that you can build yourself. Sometimes life has another plan and you have to go with it.
100%.
So I do think I am quite lucky in that respect. I know those horrible things that happened. They could be so much worse. I could live in Gaza, like. But yeah, it has
There's
left
that.
some scars. And so working with that, so I mean, I had some fantastic counselling last year. The first counsellor that I had, awful. So I went through the NHS, I self-referred. I don't know if that's something people know that they can do, but I would highly recommend it if you're sort of struggling with anything. I self-referred through the NHS website, and the guy
Oh, that
on the
was done
phone,
online.
yeah,
Okay.
the guy on the phone was really wonderful. He rang me in. It took a very long time. So I would warn you, actually, when you get to crisis point, you do kind of need help fairly soon. And unfortunately, the NHS overloaded as it is. It took a long time. It was maybe a month before my phone assessment. It was 6 months in the end, I think, before I ended up starting counselling.
Yeah.
And then when I did, the chap on the other end was so, this is what we're going to do. Do you understand? I was like, I'm not sure how this conversation's going to go.
Was this done like phone or
Yeah,
Zoomy
it was
type thing?
Zoom
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, it was a Zoom, and I was like, I don't think this is from. I don't think this guy's going to help me. Like, he doesn't sound like he stepped outside. So I tried to cancel it, and she said, "Oh, given some of the scenarios you've been in, would you think you'd feel more comfortable with a woman?" And actually, no, it wasn't that he was a man that was the issue. Obviously, I can quite comfortably talk to a man. It was him. But
It was a
yeah,
person,
she gave
yeah.
me a woman, and this woman was actually fantastic. So I'm very grateful. And she really instilled in me how much I am working very hard, and it was taking a huge toll on me. And working, like, thinking about the need to work, that need to provide that you have, that sets us into that stress state. Obviously, there's a reason for that. So if you can sort of unpick why you feel, people might be, oh, but I feel I've just got to pay the bills. But it's like, are there things you can reduce? Are there bills that you don't necessarily need? Are you spending so much on cigarettes a week? Like, I know that's your tiny little bit of joy, but if you didn't have that, would you have more joy if you had less stress? Most people are like, yes. Yes. Are you bored because you're not sort of like stepping out of your comfort zone and going and talking to people? Like, go and see family members if you have them. Like, there's all these things you can do that don't cost money and are actually really enriching to your life. And really, when you're putting so much emphasis on work, I think it's really, really easy to get caught up in that and then get caught up in getting the next job in and doing that because you need the money for this. But how much, like, how at your detriment, if you're working yourself into the ground, it isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. So she really instilled in me that I've been flying too close to the sun an awful lot. And like I said to you earlier, I cut my hours. I raised my rate. I am just amazed at the difference that it's made. Like, absolutely astonishing. She also helped him work through, like, sort of thinking rationally about whether or not those noises outside are someone breaking into my van or coming to attack me. And I'm happy to report, at first I was like, oh, I don't know. She was like, what would we do if this happened? I was like, try and stab them in the eye. She's like, probably, or
Well, here's plan B.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm definitely come out of that now. It's had a massive impact on me physically and my body. I'm hoping that I'll feel better. I've certainly seen things. So, when you put a code in, when you get like trying to sign into something and it sends you a code on your phone and you have to put that in. So anything over 6 digits, I was like, I can't remember that. And I couldn't remember a simple little code. And I was just constantly stressed. And only the other day, I did it and signed in and I read the code and then I put it straight in and I was like, oh, my brain is better.
Brain's
my
healing.
Mind is happier. We're not in that stress. And so I was so happy. I was just, I couldn't believe it. So
well done. Like, I don't mean that from any kind of patronising perspective. I mean, like, well done for recognising it, because that is the biggest step to actually recognise that actually I'm struggling a bit here. Things aren't quite where they should be, and to reach out for the help, the therapy. Like, well done. It's commendable, because so many don't.
So much stigma with it, isn't there?
Yeah, massive. I'd love to do therapy. I want to do therapy.
Yeah, do it.
But I'll hide behind all my usual excuses. Yeah.
There's loads of things as well that I went through that we won't talk about today, but that came out actually that I didn't even realize was a thing. It wasn't even on my radar. And I would say to anyone that that's the best reason to go, because you don't know what you don't know. You think you know about yourself, you have no idea. You think you know what you're dealing with, you have no idea.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest with you, Harrie, part of it with me is I know there's so much buried and under there, and there's so many things, and it's like, just, I kind of feel like I'm okay right now. Like, I'm okay. I'm intrigued to do therapy, but I'm okay. I'm handling life well. Like, I think I'm relatively happy. I'm overworked. I know that. But other than that, I'm generally happy with myself. And I'm kind of in a bit of a perspective of, do I really want to lift that lid off? Do I really want to unbottle what has been bottled? Because am I going to be better off for it, or am I going to stir up the nest?
Of course you will. It certainly feels like they come along, lay all your skeletons on the front lawn and go, there you go, bye. But actually, it takes time. You think about it. You think about what they've said. You suddenly put this together and that together, and you realize why you're here and why you're doing that and who you're with and what you're doing. And it's quite amazing. And you do get to the other side, and I do think it's worth doing. I don't think it's going to change your life for the worse. How could it? Like, if you understood, I mean, you say, oh yeah, well, I know I'm overworked now, but just as a small example, if you understood why that would be, and then sort of helped to put you in some little boundaries that just stop that from happening, and you could be happier. Like, so you might be very happy right now, but how you impact on other people, it could be better. Like, it's not, I don't think it's, I mean, I could be wrong. But I can't see how it would I can see how it would be, the concept of digging would be frightening. Because especially if you've buried some stuff, then that you've pushed it down.
A lot of stuff. I've buried a lot of stuff. I've spent the last 10 years doing a lot of self-development and working out my triggers and my reactions, I guess, and then working on those. But yeah, there's a lot in the closet still, I guess. I'm not in the closet. but there's a lot of other things that have been.
That you know of.
Well, I mean, who knows what therapy might do? I mean, if it did that, well, yeah, but yeah, who knows? Who
No,
knows?
yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not forcing anyone. Yeah, and actually, there's lots of other ways to heal. There's
No,
lots of
like
other
I said,
ways.
I'm intrigued to do it. I want to do it.
Yeah,
It's just
tiny.
finding time and money to actually. And that's one of the things that I know that I don't do enough is invest in myself.
Mm.
I'm always very much trying to support everyone else, family, friends, all the rest of it. But actually taking time out, whether that's financial or time, for myself, I do very rarely.
But and also, I mean, also, you were just saying, you do feel okay apart from that, which you obviously know is an issue, but otherwise you're saying you are quite happy and you do feel okay with your life, and you are sort of encouraging other people to sort of help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Forgotten where I was going with that. I think I was just thinking
You were just working out that I'm a hypocrite, Harry, was where you were getting to.
So,
Yeah.
it's funny, isn't it?
It's
How
very do as I say and not as I do. It's very much that. No, it's a journey I will undertake at some point, 100%.
well, no, actually, no. What I was ultimately going to say was, you're saying actually, no, if you are recognizing that you're struggling, you're not struggling in the way that you're very aware that other people will struggle and continue without any help. They'll struggle and struggle and struggle. And so, no, not a hypocrite, because yeah, you are, that, you could do some things better. We all have that. But you are still saying, actually, no, but it's okay. And I would do it if it was more of a priority for me. It's not a priority for me because I'm okay. But actually, if you're not okay, just go and do it because it'll be really helpful. Even you want to do it, even though you think you're okay, So, no, you're not me.
I'm very, very curious about it, to be honest. Everything I'm doing, even this to an extent, this is part of learning about myself. So I'm just curious. I'm curious about maybe the links, and you've alluded to some of this, the links that I haven't put together yet. I've put a lot together myself, and I understand myself a lot better than I ever have. But I think there's still a lot of links that I haven't connected yet, which would maybe take it further.
Yeah, you would be surprised. I mean, yeah, I read this book called Asperger's shortly before I had counselling, and I wept because it made my whole childhood make sense. I'd always felt like I didn't fit in, like all this kind of stuff. It was just incredible. It was like a list of, it was like someone had written a book about me, and I just couldn't believe it. And the traits of sort of being Asperger's syndrome, they don't call it that anymore. It's called something else. I can't remember what it is. But the traits of being a girl are not the same as what a boy would have, and obviously most of the tests and stuff were done on guys, and so it's very popular among men, or they think it's not popular, they think it's more common, but actually with society and the way that women learn to mask, I mean, it's incredibly, I would urge guys to read the book actually if they've got daughters, because it'd be nice to see, it would be nice to it would have been nice if someone would have recognized it for me. Because once you realize and you think, how these things are so obvious, why did no one know? And it's all because no one knew that those were the things for a woman, because no one really knows about that. So if there are any chaps that are sort of struggling or thinking their daughter might be a little bit odd in some way, definitely give it a read. Because
say the book again, Harry?
It's called Asperger's.
Asperger's.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it gives you a little insight into neurodivergent women anyway, and how the differences in how they portray things. So anyway, again, it was quite interesting, and it's only because I read that, and that was obviously not necessarily through counselling. It was only because I read that actually helped me. So, but it was useful. And then obviously when I mentioned it to my counsellor, and she was like, yes, all these things fit with what you're saying and how you reacted, and it was just so fascinating. But yeah, no, I do highly recommend. And also, if you get a terrible one, just get another one. Like
therapist, not book.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Who was I talking to? Who was I talking to? It might have been Hannah actually. I was talking about potentially, because when I started the whole circle of how this has come about, the podcast, and it was actually because I started studying psychology because I wanted to get into counselling and therapy. And then it's just like, as my life tends to go, I'll pull a string and end up over there when I was meant to be over there. And here I am doing a podcast now. I've stopped doing the degree because it was taking me down the wrong path. But again, we can get into the whole academia and education conversation. But it's still something I want to pick back up on, counselling, therapy, and part of that to become somebody that does counselling and therapy, you have to have your own therapy. It's part of the training. I think you have to have 100
I love that
hours
you're
of
like,
your own.
oh, I'll get it eventually when I need to get that. When I need to get that course.
Do you know what, Harry? It's what I started. I mean, just briefly to touch on it. So when I started studying psychology informally initially, and then I went on to doing a proper BSc honours degree in psychology.
What made you decide you wanted to start doing psychology to begin with?
What made me to begin with?
Yeah.
So I studied psychology informally, so just a collection of books and education around psychology, evolutional psychology, philosophy, and all that. That was off the back of my own mental health awakening, I guess I would call it. And when I say that, I mean...
And what started that?
Going through a divorce. Yeah, so that was the first time, and this is something I've said a few times, it was the first time I ever acknowledged that mental health existed.
Okay.
Like, full stop. If you'd have asked me before that, Russ, what do you think about your mental health? My answer would be, ain't got it, mate. That would be it. That was how ignorant to it I was.
I know a few guys like that.
But at the same time, nobody ever talked to me about it. I came from my dad's generation, my family circle, my surroundings was very, I guess, lad culture, alpha male, football, rugby, building, construction industry, surrounded by those kind of people. Nobody talked about mental health. So I wasn't aware of it. I had no knowledge. And then I went through my own very stressful time and had a few things like anxiety, borderline panic attacks a couple of times surrounding court dates and go into the depths of it. But that was the first time I was like, okay, so mental health is a thing. And then it was like, well, there's this new thing that I'm acknowledging in my life. I have this thing. Let's learn about it. So, and that was my own therapy, jumping into education. So initially, I did it all informally just to work out myself, work out what was going on in my own head, and then decided, actually, I've been in the trades all my life. I need a plan B. I've got this newfound love for psychology and knowledge. So I decided to do the degree with the sort of direction with psychology and studying psychology. You pick one of three directions. You either go for counselling and therapy, child psychology, or sports psychology. And I've always lent in towards more counselling, therapy, helping people, which then I did the degree, got halfway through it.
Those are the only three.
In terms of psychology.
Yeah.
They all cover a lot of the same stuff, but I think it's probably more from a career perspective. You have to pick. So psychology, the BSc honours degree in psychology, half of the modules are the same regardless of what you pick, like baseline psychology, like all the fundamentals. And then the rest is more specialised. So are you going to go into this, that, or that? I chose counselling and therapy. And then obviously started volunteering at Samaritans and sort of understanding, actually, this is something that I want to do. And then started looking into, well, what actually do you need to be a counsellor or a therapist? And a psychology degree was not on the list. So essentially I'd have done the whole degree, and because I was doing it part-time at OU, I'd have spent 6 years doing it to have got to the point where at the end I'd have gone, right, I want to go into counselling, and they go, okay, well, you need to start here, which is at the bottom. And I kind of thought, well, I thought, because I spoke to a couple of course providers that were like on the BACP approved list, which is like the most recognised accreditation for counsellors and therapists, are mostly BACP registered. And I spoke to a few of the organisers that do the course and said, look, if I've got an honours degree in psychology, do I at least start at say it starts level 2, do I at least start at level 4 and then I qualify at level 6? Do I start at can I at least have level 3? They were like, no, you start at the beginning. Psychology degree has no standing when it comes to counselling and therapy. So I stopped doing it.
Wild.
Yeah.
I would not have anticipated that.
Neither did I. I mean, if I'm honest, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but the only reason that you would actually do a psychology degree, I mean, I got some great knowledge. It wasn't a waste of time. I learned a lot. But the only reason, like career-wise, you do an honours degree in psychology would be if you wanted to become a clinical psychologist, and the only people that have them are the NHS. So if you wanted to qualify as a clinical psychologist, you have to have a psychology degree.
Okay.
Then you have to do a master's, then you have to do a doctorate. So it's like stage one of what would be like a 10 to 12-year process.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I didn't know this.
Be paid 30k in the NHS and be abused every day.
Exactly that. Yeah. I was extremely naive, and I just went A to B, and I went counselling, therapy, that's psychology. I'll do a psychology degree. Okay. Obviously, that's what I need. And I was very wrong.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah, that was why.
So that's why.
And then somehow down the line, I was sad doing a podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny where life takes you, really. But I do 100% plan on picking back up along the counselling and therapy. In fact, that room there, I've got earmarked as a counselling/therapy room.
I'm just not going to be very happy with you about this.
She's not using it enough, and you're not listening. You're probably not listening. If you are listening, you're not using it enough. I'm going to take it back. But yeah, that's where potentially this is all going to go.
Wow.
And I'd love to deliver, obviously, counselling and therapy into our industry.
Yeah, fabulous. I think you'd be wonderful at that. I mean, we're already kind of doing it. So
kind of, yeah. I mean, talking therapies are a big thing.
Yeah. Oh.
So there we go.
There we go.
Harrie, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Before we do wrap things up, is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I mean, there's probably a million things, but we do have to call it a day at some point.
We do at some point.
I'll be back.
We can always do number 2, number 3, as long as this hasn't been too horrific an experience for you.
No, it's been very lovely. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
It's been amazing. Where can people find you, should they wish to?
Oh, I am at Harrie Interiors, Harrie.interiors, HARRIE, because my name is Harriet, but I wanted to be gender neutral. I'm not gender neutral, but I just wondered if that mattered when I originally joined. Apparently it doesn't. Anyway, and
are you saying you're on TikTok as well? Which is your bigger platform?
I have just joined, not just joined. I dabble in TikTok. You know, I don't commit to anything ever. So I occasionally do Instagram. I occasionally do TikTok.
I'll put Harrie's details will be in the episode description below.
But I am also
give her a follow.
Pilates painter.
Pilates painter, 100%.
Pilates painter, which also may be something I actually build on at some point, or I may not. If you have any suggestions for me, and or if there's anything that you would like me to show you how to do with regards to stretching after work or anything like that, then please.
Personally, honestly, I think just building awareness and knowledge around it is probably the key thing for that, because it's so obvious, like the benefits it could have.
And if anyone near Petswood wants a tradesman only class, let me know.
Near where, sorry?
Petswood, Orpington. That's where I teach currently.
There we go.
So yeah, there's definitely opportunity for that if you think it's something that could roll.
It's a bit far for me to travel, but I think it's a great idea.
I think you should just come down to give it a go.
Well, you've come here to give this a go.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I'll bring some cameras down. But yeah,
Thank
Harrie,
you.
Listen, it's been amazing. Thank you very much for giving up your time and all the usual stuff. So a big thank you to the Funky Peach, who provide our guest merchandise, of which I will be bestowing upon Harrie. Thank you to you guys for supporting the podcast. If you're looking for any branded workwear, go and check out the Funky Peach. I'll catch you soon on the next one.